Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank, and on the left side is Gary Groob, and below both of us there, but above our skill in lacrosse, of course, is Troy Holowchuk. He is the goaltender for the Toronto Rock, who play in the National Lacrosse League, which coincidentally we call the show NLL Lacrosse Talk for some reason. The first question we always ask, always, how did you pick up a stick?
Yeah. It was early on. I think I was probably 4. I think the story goes I got put in soccer first, and just it wasn't for me. Wasn't a fan of that, and so I guess the next step for my dad was to put me in lacrosse. Played 1 year as a player. Decided I didn't like getting hit, so I tried goalie in old St. Catharines paperweight. House League lacrosse, and yeah, the rest is history. Playing that since 2005.
What kept you in the net? What kept you playing?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of just you like what you're good at, and I kind of had a natural affinity for for playing net for some reason. So I think part of it's that, and part of it, like I said, the goalies don't get hit. Goalies don't have to, do the sprints, and, and so that was always a nice little draw to the goaltending position.
Because you're a goalie, I guess a leading question is always, what in your mental makeup do you think helps you be a goaltender? Because you know that people always say, well, goaltenders, they're kind of different. They're kind of, So what is it about you, your character, your thinking process, you think that helps make you a really good goaltender?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's I mean, I love the position for what it is. I love that you're kind of the last line of defense. And so, there's a lot of not pressure, but it's a unique position where you're able to kind of control the game in a way. And so I really like that aspect of it. And then I think just as I came up playing goalie, I just really enjoyed like learning the position and watching the greats in the NLL, and it drew me to get better. And as I got better, I just loved playing more. It's just something I've always had a real passion for and a real love for.
So Gary, you want to review them? You want to?
I actually want to bring up a few things before we go back and play This Is Your Life a little bit. And it has to deal with a lot with this past weekend of you having to come in cold. And you stop basically the number one offense in the league. The mental toughness to be in a backup goalie role, especially in a hotbed like Toronto where everything is under a microscope, that's got to be taxing.
Yeah, I think Coach Matt had a good quote in his post game presser. It's just like that's the job. Like that's you can say how tough a spot it is, or they're a great offense, and like you said, Toronto is a hotbed, and we got a great fan base that lets you know whether you're playing well or not well. But yeah, I think that's just the job, and that's what we all prepare for. I spend a lot of the time in the off season prepping for situations like that mentally, and working with the great staff we have in Toronto in terms of mentally preparing for that role. And it's a very unique spot. It's a spot that I have found myself in for a number of years now, and so you kind of grow to get used to going in cold or going in different situations. But I mean, every time you just have to you just have to get up to speed quick and catch up to the speed of the game as fast as you can, make that first save, and try to roll from there.
Right. I found that there's two types of backups. There's the guys who count to 5, and then there are the cerebral, the goalies, and that's you. It's also who the Rock traded for this week. And Stephen Orleman, he's been a guest on the show. I've known him for a number of years. He was in the Brampton organization when I was in that organization as well, and he was kind of the finishing piece for their Minto role. Have you had a chance to sit down and talk with Steve about things and how things are going to move forward?
I have, yeah. He was at practice last night, but I've also known Steve for a long time. We were Team Ontario teammates back in 2015, I think. So good friends since then. You know, kept in touch, and yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to have him join the organization. He's going to be a great piece to our goaltending room. That's already in my mind, like in my eyes, a pretty stacked goalie room. And yeah, I had a chance to chat with him yesterday at practice or 2 days ago now at practice. And yeah, he's excited. We're excited to have him. And I think it's going to be a really good fit for the short term and for the long term.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think he's got the right attitude also. And, again, you have to be kind of like a goldfish, like every 30 seconds, we start over and you can't let anything linger. And like I say, on the weekend, you were able to absolutely stone cold an offense that has been rolling right through the league. And it's just, it's wave after wave. And really, it coming down to the final end, you just absolutely shut him down, which is what we knew from even seeing you last year when they traded Nick for a while and you had the starting job. That's another thing I really want to get into, is because you've had the mentality of being a backup and now, boom, you're thrust into the starting role. That's it. Is there any extra pressure you put on yourself or the team? Or, it looked like you tended to just fit right into where you were going.
Yeah, I try not to see it as pressure. I think it's just an opportunity. I know, playing behind this defense is a treat. We have a really, really strong defensive core made up of a lot of veteran guys with a lot of experience and a lot of young guys that can really, move their feet and move the ball on the floor. And so, I see this as just an opportunity to step in and earn some trust. And I know, the organization has trust in me. I have all the faith in the world in the defense in front of me. So that makes the transition a little easier and takes some of the pressure off knowing who I got in front of me.
Right. And because your style is so much different than Nick, I think you really threw them off because they were ready for the type of style that Nick plays. And all of a sudden you're there, reflexes and, size and all the rest of it coming in. And it just threw everything for a little wrench in everything.
Yeah. We've talked about that before. It's a little it's an interesting 1-2 punch of me and Rosie. We play a pretty different style and we both play our styles very well. And so, it's tough for a defense. It's a nice, if they get on a roll on one style, it's nice that we have, a nice compliment, sitting on the bench way, either way for us to be able to kind of switch the momentum up.
Right. Let's go back a little bit, and really, I want to get into who was your earliest role model as you were starting to figure out that goaltending is where you wanted to be.
Yeah, I had a couple really great goalie coaches growing up. I'll give a shout out to John Edgar in St. Catharines. He was a really formative coach I had growing up, doing clinics, and he would come out in the summers as well. And he was a guy who really helped form my style and helped form me as a goalie. So, guys like that, coaches like that, I've had along the way. And then, looking at who the top goalies in the league were when I was coming up, Matt Vince, who's still doing it. He was always, him being a St. Catharines guy too. He's a guy I kind of idolized growing up and would watch him all the time. And then, in Toronto, Bob Watson, Whipper was a really fun goalie to watch. He led a really strong Toronto team for a number of years. And so those two guys stand out as guys that really kind of formed what I wanted to do in the net. And I tried to emulate those guys a lot.
Right. Now let's talk a little bit about the St. Catharines program, because you came up and from paperweight all the way up to junior B, you were there. And what made the program so special?
We had a great group in kind of both my years. The 99 year in St. Catharines was super strong. I mean, you look at guys like, Alex Simmons and Keelan Pilon, guys that are still in this league. And so we had, obviously the 98 group there as well, led by Latrell was really, and Nick Damude was really, really special. So we had a lot of we had a real cluster of talent in that 98 to 2000, 2001 group. that made it a lot of fun to play. And I mean, the coaching staffs that I had growing up were always the best. Led by Dan Pilon and some of the guys that are still around the league. They were a really great coaching staff that we had, many times growing up, and so it's a special organization. There's a lot of pride in the Double Blue, and so it was a really cool place to kind of grow up playing and be able to compete for that city.
Right. I think the biggest lesson you took away from playing through the St. Catharines thing all the way through Junior B, your biggest lessons that you took from them.
Yeah. I mean, I got pretty lucky in minor that like there weren't a lot of goalies around my age in St. Catharines, so I got a lot of minutes growing up.
Right.
And so that helped for sure in terms of just experience and learning the game. And then we thinking back to like I think we won the Bantam provincials, so learning how to win, learning how to compete at the highest level that you can get to at whatever age you're at. That was a really formative part of my lacrosse journey, I think.
Right. And then you move on over to Junior A and Six Nations, and that team has just been storied. And just coming off at that time, you went in 2019, but it just had come off the Minto Cup run with Doug Jamieson and the rest of that all-star lineup that pretty much I think 2/3 of them are still in the league. Talk about getting in there and setting your mark in with them.
Yeah, like you said, a storied franchise that I got to be a part of, and I don't think our team played up to where we maybe were hoping to, and I think we got bounced in the first round that year, but I mean that was a super cool experience to be able to get to play there, get to put on that jersey and be a part of that organization. I think there was a lot of great people in that organization that really pushed me as a goalie and pushed that organization along, and I mean it was a great place to play for couple of years. We got a year stolen, unfortunately, due to COVID and everything, and then we got to do the old COVID mini bubble. But yeah, it was I had a blast playing there and met a lot of great guys playing.
That COVID mini bubble, that was the first signs of lacrosse that any of us had in almost 2 years. What did you do to keep yourself active throughout the COVID nonsense?
Yeah, I did what everybody did. I think I tried to stay as active as I could outside, I guess, keeping 6 feet away from people. But it was a crazy time trying to stay like as active as you can be while not being able to play lacrosse, and at that point I was a practice goalie with the Rock, so like the uncertainty of the NLL seasons, and it was crazy. I mean, I luckily, being a part of the Rock at that point, had some great resources in terms of, getting creative workouts in and getting on the floor as soon as it was safe, getting on the floor. But yeah, it was certainly challenging.
Yeah, because most of the guys, being offensive guys, were doing wall ball things. I don't think wall ball works so well as a goalie.
Goalies didn't have a lot of options. It was kind of, you can only throw the reaction ball off the wall so many times.
And from a certain distance, right? So you have chances to save.
Yeah.
So I don't think that really worked as well. Let's go back to draft day. The Rock picked you up in 2019, and let's go back into you're sitting there, you're waiting, and your name gets called. What went through your head?
Yeah, I mean that's the moment you dream of, right? Like I was lucky to be surrounded by friends and family watching from our place in Waterloo at the time, and I mean just like couldn't ask for a better organization to get drafted by. I've known Jamie a long time through playing with Josh and everything like that, and I was just unbelievably exciting moment. It was so cool, and I rode that high for for a long time because it was a really cool day.
Right. Now, my favorite question always is your first training camp. Was it what you envisioned?
My first funny story. My first day at Rock training camp. Tom Schreiber was coming off a shoulder injury in the PLL, and being the third goalie at training camp, I was the guy who I spent the first half hour, I think, in one end while he just ripped balls at me for like 20 minutes. So that was an awakening to the to the National Lacrosse League. But yeah, I mean, first training camp was super cool. You get in there and you see a lot of guys that you again idolize, like meeting tribes and meeting, some of my teammates. It was I was a bit starstruck, I think, at first, but then you remember it's just lacrosse, and it's just the game you've been playing for your whole life. It's just a little faster, and you gotta adjust to the pace.
Right. This is something a lot of them say. A lot of the guys are talking about, even from junior A to NLL, and the speed difference, the size difference, the hitting, all the other things. Is that the same with in the goal?
Oh yeah, it's a different world. The ball flies around at what feels like twice the speed compared to junior A. It's really a big step up, and you add on the bigger net and the smaller stick, and all of the slightly smaller equipment that all the goalies gotta deal with when you make that jump from junior to pro. It's a big step up from what junior A is in terms of goaltending, and yeah, it took a little bit to get up to speed for sure.
Let alone the shooters who can hit a niblet of corn if you really ask them to.
Yeah. I think Adam Jones was still around that year, and he'd pick short side corner on me just at will. Yeah, I had just nothing against him.
Right. Who took you under their wing to help you get adjusted?
Yeah, I the goalie room then was Rosie Hutch and myself, and we developed a really strong bond as a goalie room. I love those guys, and appreciate them for all they did when I kind of joined the team, and getting me up to speed and allowing me to progress the way I did. So that I point to those guys as guys that kind of got me comfortable at this level, and we had our little goalie corner in the track room, and that was a lot of fun. And we those guys for sure were taking me under their wing and showing me the ropes of NLL goaltending.
Right. Now you've been around for a number of years, so now track isn't all that special anymore. But when you were coming in your first years and you walked around the building and looking at this place, I know when I came in the first time just after Jamie built it and got toured through the dressing room and all the state-of-the-art stuff, the ice tubs and everything else that's in there at your avail, that must have been like, wow, I've made it.
Yeah, it's definitely. I still catch myself like looking at the the banners on the wall, and looking at the little wall of fame they've got above the lockers. Like, it's still it's a very storied franchise with a lot of great players have come through, and so it's important to remember that and remember what you're representing.
Right. How have you seen your game improve since you walked into day one of training camp to where we are now?
Yeah, it's come a long way. I think I've gotten used to the speed. I would hope by now, 6 years later. But yeah, I think my game's changed a lot in terms of how I see the game, and how I break down film, and how I prepare for game days and stuff. I think a lot of that's changed, and then physically, like my ability to play the ball and ability to move the ball up the floor, I think is a lot of the little things that just come with experience at this level. I think my game's changed a lot in terms of that.
Right. Now, talk to me through your first NLL performance, your first appearance, and what was going through your mind as you going in the net and knowing that you're the guy.
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one. It was during like the COVID year, against Halifax at home, and I was still the third string at that point, but Hutch had COVID, so he was out for a couple weeks, and I got thrust into a backup spot. And yeah, the first game I went in like the second quarter, I think. to no fans. And it's just, I think that honestly helped a little bit in terms of just like allowing me to settle in and play lacrosse and not get kind of overwhelmed by the stage. And so, yeah, but I mean, it was a crazy experience, and it all happened kind of quick. Like, you know, you're the third string and you're sitting behind a couple of guys just developing. And then all of a sudden, I think a week later, I'm in an NLL game. Like it happened fast, but yeah, it was a unique experience for sure, being like just a fully empty arena for my first NLL minutes.
Right. That's not a bad thing, you know, at times
No,
too.
for sure. Yeah.
How do you balance patience with competitiveness? You know, when you're sitting as a backup and, you know, minutes aren't guaranteed and you kind of wonder, is this it? Maybe that. Yeah. And you don't want to wish anything bad on anybody, but it's like, I want to get in.
Yeah. I mean, you know, any backup goalie that's saying they don't want to start and they don't want to get in is lying. But yeah, I mean, we have, like I said, we have a really great goalie room here. You know, we all are competitive guys, and we push each other to be our best. And at the same time, we're a very supportive group, and we want, you know, at the end of the day, we just want to win. Like we just want to get wins. And so, you know, understanding that if I stay competitive and push Rosie and push Orly and you know, make sure I'm at my best, you know, that time's going to come. And I think Jamie said it in an interview that, like, you know, goalies take a while to kind of develop, especially in this league with how much change there is from the junior level. And so, you know, I know my time will come. I just need to focus on, you know, being at the best I can be when that time comes. And you know, over the last couple of years, it's come a little bit in terms of me getting some starts.
Right. Again, I come back to the not being in all that much and communication with your defense. Is it difficult, or it's really a veteran group, so it must be a little bit easier, at least with calling switches and the rest of things?
Yeah, they're a really seasoned group, solid communicators, and I try to you know, I try to be as active even when I'm out on the bench. I try to be as active as I can, just to get in the groove of it, just to, you know, in case I do go in, you know, I'm talking to guys on the bench, I'm talking to the defense, calling out shot clock and whatever. So yeah, I mean, this group makes it easy for me to be a communicator and to call it out, but also, you know, they do a good job amongst themselves calling picks out and making decisions on the fly. You know, I try to provide information, but I also try to kind of stay out of their way and not cause any miscommunication between them.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the culture of Toronto and the animal that it is. And I know you've met a number of the fans and things like that over the years. Just talk about, you know, just the expectations of everybody, you know, now that you're, you know, a mainstay on the team.
Yeah. I mean, the fans we have are amazing. They, you know, they come out in numbers to looking forward to autograph night this weekend. They they always come out in numbers for that. But yeah, I mean, I've always felt welcomed by this fan base. They've done a great job, and they've you know, they want to see our team win, and that it's the same thing we want. We just want to, you know, put up wins for this fan base, and you know, however that's got to come, that's got to come. I think they're a really passionate group, and like I said, they'll let you know when they're happy, and they'll let you know when they're not. And so, you know, it's on us to be at our best and provide wins for this fan base.
Right. Now, you are also involved at track doing coaching. Let's talk about that and all the little aspects and all the programs that are available and that you're involved with.
Yeah. I mean, the track is really just the absolute mecca of lacrosse in Ontario right now. I think they've done an amazing job, and all the people that lead it there, Colin Doyle and Doss and Jamie, like, you know, the program they've set up with the Rock Stars and Rock Elite League's getting bigger, and they run, you know, the Pebbles programs. Like it's where you want to be for minor and junior lacrosse. It's an absolute hub of lacrosse, and yeah, I mean, it's excited to be able to be a part of that and be around the track and just see people who love lacrosse.
Right. Does it increase your understanding of your own role as a player, coaching?
Yeah, 100%. Like it's when you're in game, you're real focused on what you got to do and what making the next save and getting the ball out. From a coaching perspective, there's a lot more to think about, and you kind of get to see how your in-game role fits into the bigger picture that the coaches and people are looking at.
We always hear about the offensive younger kid who we can see the talent right away, or the one who's working really hard. What do you think is most misunderstood by a young goalie as he comes into camp?
Yeah, I think the thing that young goalies miss, I certainly was missing this, is the need for consistency. Like it's consistency is what makes you a mainstay in this league. You can have a great game, you can have a great drill, you can have a great practice. But if you can't do that and replicate that over and over and really make that, the level that you're playing at consistently, it's tough to keep a job. Like consistency is the name of the game for NLL goaltending in my mind.
Right. I would also think you'd be spending a lot of time on the mental aspect to not let it get to you, because you're going to get guys who have hot sticks, and no matter what you do, you could put a wall behind you and you're still going to find a way to score on certain nights, and to not let that bother you and affect your game.
Yeah. I mean, it's lacrosse. Goals are going to go in. Like I feel good about my performance in Rochester. They still put up 3. Like it's goals are going to go in, and that's just the nature of the game. And so, being accepting of that while still holding yourself to a standard of like, okay, that one went in. Let's get the next one. It's that's what it's all about. Is just the acceptance and the moving on, and it's nothing. You can't make a save once the ball's in the net. You can only focus on you can only focus on the next shot.
Right. Well, if you can keep it to 3 goals and 30 shots throughout the rest of your career, I will be at your Hall of Fame induction.
Yeah, I'd take that.
What part of your game are you working on the most now?
Yeah, I actually think it is that consistency. I think being a backup and being a starter are a little different in terms of what the expectations are, and I think working on being a consistent starter and in the opportunity that I have, just bringing my A game every night, I think is my main focus. I think this is a good opportunity to get some minutes and work on that consistency from putting in a full 60 minutes and being able to turn out multiple performances in a row.
Right. You have Georgia this weekend, and they've had a little bit of trouble scoring up until this past weekend, and all of a sudden, boom, it erupted. Guys like Lyle Thompson, guys like Shane Jackson. When you're thinking about they're coming at you, how does that work towards your mindset in this game?
Yeah, I mean, you knew they were not an offense that was going to be quiet the whole year. Like you knew they were going to have a coming out game, and they were going to be able to put some goals up. And so, I mean, every offense in this league has guys that can put the ball in the net, and Georgia's no different. Obviously, Lyle Thompson you can put up for maybe best in the world, and yeah, you said Shane Jackson, like they've got guys that can put the ball in the net. And so, being aware of those guys, but at the same time, just, trusting your game and trusting the game plan the coaches put in, finding a balance in that and getting in the film room and getting prepared and, watching what worked for other goalies and watching what didn't.
Right. What keeps you motivated? When you're not a starter, what keeps you motivated?
Yeah, mostly my teammates. Like we've got a great group in Toronto. We got a lot of guys that have been together for a long time, and we know how to push each other. I think we know how to hold the group accountable and make sure everybody's at their best. And I think that's where a lot of the motivation comes from, is we're just a really motivated group. Like we've been close a lot, but we haven't gotten there. And so, I think motivation's at an all-time high, especially coming off last year, where that's, no one's happy with what happened last year. So I think we're a really motivated group as a whole, and also at an individual level, everyone's just looking to be at their best.
Right. I look at last year, yeah, things didn't work out so well in the long term, but in individual things, I think there were some really big motions. Josh Dawa came into his own. His wings are finally fully spread. You came into your own being a starter for a number of games. I think there were a lot of positives we could pull out of a season that was mediocre, to be kind. But to go forward into this year, I think it's character. And there's a lot of character in that dressing room that builds on it. And you have to learn how to lose, and you have to learn how to get over losing to learn how to win, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, they're in a season we'd like to throw away. There were a lot of positives. We had, 240 goal scorers on the offensive side. Like, that's only happened a couple times, I think, in franchise history. And so, we draw the positives from it, but we're aware that, no one's happy with that outcome. And we got to be better. And absolutely. It's a character thing. It's learning how to lose and bounce back. And, we had a lot of years there where we were winning a lot. And then all of a sudden, you come out at the start of last season and kind of get punched in the mouth, and how do you respond? And I think we've responded well so far at the beginning of this year. We still got to put together, I think, a full 60. I don't think we've really gotten there yet, but we just keep striving towards that.
Right.
And I think, how do you handle sitting on the bench watching, the team's ups and downs?
Yeah, you're right in the middle of it, right? Like, it's, D guys come off dejected after a goal, and you got to kind of, you be the cheerleader a little bit, and pump guys up, and you're right in the heart of it. And I think it's tough watching and knowing that you can't control the game in terms of being in there. But you can, still find ways to contribute, in terms of, giving a guy a pep talk, or kicking a guy in the ass, and being at your best, and just being ready when the time comes.
On the subject of being at your best, being in the position you're in, where you're being called on, it's rare, I guess, as a backup. Well, maybe not rare, but definitely not like a starter, where you have to be ready 100% of the time, and 80% of the time, or 60% of the time, you're not in the net.
Yeah.
How tough is that?
It took some learning, for sure, of how to come in cold, and how to how to be at your best right away, because the game's not going to slow down for you. You got to come in and catch up to speed right away. So it's certainly the most challenging part of the job as a backup goalie, is that first 30 seconds you're kind of thrust into the game. But if you can weather the storm and kind of get through that and get warm, then you just rely on your preparation, and your preparation still has to be the same as if you're starting. In my mind, I've always taken that approach of whether you're starting or backing up, you may be called on, and you may have to make the save that changes the game. And so preparation is super important, and being mentally ready for that challenge.
Yeah, and the pressure that you're under, I mean, it probably is obvious, but help me understand the difference between the pressure of coming in to keep a run going, because the other goaltender needs a rest, so the coach makes a decision. How much pressure is there? Because you get to run the gamut, right? You get to keep a good run going, or stop a bad run going, or stop a bad run in a game going. How do you jockey that in your mind?
Yeah, 9 times out of 10 you're coming in and things are not going in your team's favor, and so you're trying to be the kind of stop loss, and yeah, I mean, the pressure's there because the first shot goes in, and all of a sudden either you're out of the game, or your team's down another goal, and the momentum hasn't changed, and you haven't done your job. So I think it comes with a lot of pressure, but it's also if you're prepared for that pressure and you're prepared for that feeling, you're able to kind of weather the storm a little bit.
I guess the goldfish principle that Gary talks about
Exactly.
is always happening.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have a favorite barn you like to play in other than Toronto?
It's a good question. I mean, as a Toronto player playing in Buffalo, we haven't, had a lot of recent success there, but the crowd they draw there is always a lot of fun to play in front of. It's the barns that draw the crowd, right? It's Vancouver in recent years and kind of Sask and Calgary. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Calgary's a lot of fun. You get to play out there. I mean those barns with the big atmospheres and the fan base and everything is always a lot of fun to play in front of. It brings a lot of energy.
Right. I actually like the one in San Diego when I went out there. I guess it was a year ago, and
Yeah.
I liked the style of the place, and it's in the '70s feel, but it's the way it was set up was really really nice.
Yeah, they've got a good turf setup there and everything. It's a good setup.
Right. How's goaltending changed over the years, do you think, to where we are now?
Yeah, I think styles. I look at it similar to like hockey, where you may have you have the old school style, the Dallas Elliocks of years past, of like the tiny equipment and the lead with the stick. And then you kind of have this wave of bigger equipment, and with the bigger equipment comes a different style. And I think we're seeing a bit of a resurgence of the more reactionary goaltender. I think you see a lot of the younger guys coming up, and they lean that way a little bit more, I think. So I think it's an ever-changing position. I think it's always going to be evolving, and I think the guys that come out on top are just the guys that can pick a style and play it really well. And no matter what style that is, if you can play that style really well and consistently, I think those are the guys that that make their names.
Right. I've had a chance to go over to Europe a number of times for the Rebesky tournament with the Gales, and watching European lacrosse start to elevate again like hockey. And if we're not careful in North America, if we rest on our laurels, just like hockey, it'll slowly start making its way up. Have you had a chance to see any of the European style? And I'm just curious if you see something different about the goaltending there.
I haven't seen a ton of it, to be honest with you, but it's exciting that you say that it's growing. I know I've heard it's growing, and I know that they have the Euros tournament every year, and guys get excited to play in that. That are able to play. I know Dante Mancini, our third goalie with the Rock, is going to play for Team Italy. I think a few of the guys are playing for their home countries, we'll call it. But I think it's great that the game's growing over there. I think the bigger the community, the bigger the talent pool, and the more competitive NLL Lacrosse can get, and hopefully it gets to the point where people are coming over from Europe and playing in the league. That would be a really exciting prospect.
Right, because the same thing's happening like hockey. Is a lot of the guys from North America are going over to coach. Sean Evans was coaching with Switzerland. Chad Culp was doing Team Israel, and so on and so forth. So watching these teams and watching them take on those styles is interesting to see one year to the next. And it's 12 months between seeing these things. So when I go back over again in April, it's going to be a whole new elevation of things. But every year it's that much more competitive, from just kind of a hack around tournament to a must-see, must-win tournament. And a lot of guys who aren't going to the playoffs in NLL find themselves on teams over there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping you never have an opportunity to make it there until you retire.
Yeah, I hope so as well.
Where do you see the next generation of Canadian goaltender coming from?
I mean, it's hard not to say Orangeville, the goalie factory, but I think it's going to be I think it's going to be less concentrated than it has been in the past. I think in the past you have these Orangevilles and out west you've got a couple centers that like just grow these goalies. I think with the increase in program availability and off-season training programs, what we're doing at the track, what I know there's a lot. The goalie factory out west is doing phenomenal work. I think you're going to see the new wave of Canadian goalies come from centers that maybe have never had a goalie make it to the NLL level. I think you're gonna decentralize the goaltending, I think, a lot in Canadian lacrosse, and I think that's going to breed more competition and just make everything elevate the game, I think.
Right. We're in this era now, of course, of prep schools, and they're really opening up everywhere. You've always heard about the Hill, but you got Elevate, you've got a few things out west, you've got things down south now as well. Is that helping to bring the goalie thing through? And we've heard about all the offense, but is it helping bringing the goalie crews together?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's tough because a lot of those prep schools are field centric, and so the translation of field goalie to box goalie doesn't always work, barring D Ward and Dauber and those guys that just are great at both. But I think anywhere lacrosse can grow, there's gonna be a want for a box goalie come out and face shots, and the higher level shots they're facing, the better the goalie's going to get, and it's just this continuing cycle.
Right. If you had to change one thing about goalie development in lacrosse, what do you think it would be?
That I think, at least at the junior level, and you could talk about going down to the minors, I'm really an advocate for pushing the NLL rules down into junior and maybe even the upper levels of minor. I think eliminating the massive step between junior A and the pros in terms of what goalies have to kind of jump through, transitioning from the big sticks and transitioning from the slightly smaller nets. I'm a big advocate for, I think it should just be all the same rules, and that's going to really drive goalie development. I think too many guys get drafted or have a chance in a training camp and just can't make that jump because they just haven't had enough experience using the spoon or using using NLL nets. I think that's the next step in goalie development, especially at the junior level, is just forcing guys to play by NLL rules, and it may jump scoring up a little bit, but I mean, scoring isn't super high in junior to begin with. It may not necessarily be a bad thing.
Right. What do you think about the what do you think about the ALL? It has a tendency to, I think it's put 35 players in the NLL to stay, and a few names that come to mind is Craig Wendy, Steve Orleman, Higgins, Deacon Knott have all come through there. Do you think that that's on the right track of what you're talking about?
Yeah, Troy Holowchuk as well, for former ALL player. Yeah, I think it's great. I think my time in the ALL was definitely developmental for me. I think, again, anytime you get a chance to play at a high level, using the spoon and the NLL nets and NLL rules and guys that are competing for spots in the NLL, I think it breeds a lot of good competition, and it's a great training ground for guys, especially goalies, because you can take as many horseshoes and take as many practice drills as you want, but it's the game minutes where you're really developing. And so it's big for guys to be able to get minutes in the winter and to be able to continue to grow as players, and then ease that jump a little bit.
Right, let alone keep guys on practice squads more than just a Tuesday night practice. They actually have a chance to have game reps that they're ready if they're needed to be called up. The Olympics coming up in 2028, and your thoughts on sixes? I'm always interested about goalies' opinions of this.
Yeah, I've tried it a couple times. It's fun. I don't know if it's for me. But no, I mean, lacrosse getting in the Olympics is a huge win for the lacrosse community, whether it's sixes, whether it's field, whether it's box. Just lacrosse being in the Olympics is a win for the lacrosse community. And so if it's sixes, then I'm all for it. I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be fast. The goalies don't have much of a shot in my eyes, but that's not really what it's for. It's supposed to be fast paced and exciting, and I view it a little more as like a basketball pace than like a boxer field pace. But it's super exciting that it's in the Olympics. I think a lot of guys are going to be able to go and compete and be Olympians, and I think that's a really cool thing for a lot of guys that play lacrosse that maybe didn't think that was possible.
Is the more important big picture the fact that the lacrosse is being played at the Olympics than how they're playing it in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I think however lacrosse gets in the Olympics is a win for the lacrosse community, and yeah, I think if it's sixes, then great at sixes. That's been my attitude. I think
the long-term goal is to get people into the game, to see the game. Well, the biggest problem I guess we have in lacrosse is finding the new eyes to watch the game, right? We talk about it being on network television helping, but this is a whole different thing. This is a real bundle of different people who would never otherwise even run across lacrosse, even in a newspaper or on television in any way.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody sees lacrosse for the first time in the Olympics as sixes, and then they see, the NLL game of the week on TSN, they throw it on. Like I think it's a great thing for the sport. I think it's, you try not to put too much weight into it. It might be a different format and whatever, but I think it's great for the sport that it's in the Olympics on this stage, and I think getting lacrosse players onto the Olympic stage is a huge step for the sport.
Because we ask, players, coaches, everybody involved in lacrosse, what made you pick up a stick? A lot of them saw the game, and it triggered an interest in playing. It was actually seeing the game being played. How do you feel about that? And that initial moment, can you remember the initial moment that you saw lacrosse being played, and how that'll help the people who are watching for the first time in the Olympics? And do you have any suggestions for lacrosse in general to help, guide those people through watching the game? I hope that wasn't too complicated.
No, I think I got it. I think, I think, I mean, the story of me starting lacrosse starts with my parents being rock fans, like, in the early 2000s and 90s. Like they were at the championship game at Maple Leaf, Maple Leaf Garden. Like that's how it led to me picking up a stick. And so, it's a similar story to someone, seeing lacrosse for the first time. I think, the first couple of times I watched lacrosse was probably junior A games in St. Catharines. I think, we going out to Bill Burgoyne Arena at the time and watching junior A games. Like, I think that was probably where I started. And so, I think, to translate the Olympic game into more interest in the lacrosse community is going to be, a key thing that I think the league and the lacrosse community as a whole, not just at the NLL level, but I think everywhere is going to be important to capitalize on. I think the more you can get lacrosse, kind of in people's social media feeds and in people's, just peripheral vision of the sporting landscape, I think that's going to be a big time for lacrosse to capitalize on some high level marketing, basically being part of the Olympics.
Yeah, if you're going to the game, my big advice is hold on to your beer.
Yeah, especially if you're sitting on the glass.
Yeah, definitely. I had talked to Bob Tearing, who we were talking about sixes, and would it be better if we made the nets 4x4 instead of 6x6? And he brought up something that I would have never thought about, but I'm sure that you have, is that you poor guys would get killed.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't wish that on any goalie. That'd be brutal. At least in the 6x6, they're not shooting at you.
Yeah, yeah, they're trying to pick corners and stuff. But would it be better to do it with equipment, do you think, than being just a field goalie?
Oh, let's just play box then. I think we're getting all the way to box. No, I think the sixes game is an accessible option, and I think that's what makes it attractive on a world stage. People in countries where lacrosse is not big are going to see lacrosse on an Olympic stage, and so the sixes game is a very accessible version of the game, and I think that's a big positive. It might get a stick in people's hands and grow the game in places that we can't even expect right now.
Right. We have to hope that both leagues, PLL and NLL, have exit strategies for after the fact. It's all great to have 280 countries to watch, but it's what you're going to do afterwards. People have this taste, and now you have to work with the marketing machines and getting them to watch your brand on a consistent basis.
Yeah, it's gonna be super important for both leagues to capitalize on that momentum.
Yeah. Do you think that lacrosse can be a full-time gig in the near future?
Depends how near the future I think you talk about. My answer is yes. I think one day this league can get to a place where guys are getting paid and people are doing this full time. Do I think it's a couple years down the road? No, I don't. But I think if things start bouncing the right way, and momentum builds for this league, I absolutely do think it's a league where guys can make this a full-time job.
Right. Being on the board for OSL, the question comes to mind is, would it destroy summer ball, you think?
It would certainly have an impact. It'd be a tough sell for guys to play full time through the winter, whether you bump the season up to 40 games or 50 games, whatever it might be, and then talk guys into playing summer ball. I think that, and that's why I say, like, I don't think we're super close. I think the environment as it is now would have to change, like, really substantially to allow full-time box lacrosse players. I think a lot of change would have to happen, and that's not necessarily all positive change. I think you would lose a lot of things that really help the lacrosse community grow and stay as involved as it is.
I would also think that a lot of the guys who went for scholarships, NCAA, and moving up that way and getting their degrees in business and things like that, or whether they're first responders, I don't know if they'd want to give up careers to be, and we're going to lose players that way too. So I'm not sure if that's, it's great to say it's full-time gig, and yeah, we're there, but it's probably the greatest part-time job ever.
It's a pretty good part-time gig. Yeah.
Just before we wrap up, just what's on the horizon for Troy Holowchuk?
Yeah. I mean, starting a couple games, and I think that's just been the sole focus. I think taking it one game at a time and being at my best and winning some lacrosse games, I think is on the horizon, or at least I hope it is.
Right, and of course down the road a bit, it's to have more than just a couple of games, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll take it a game at a time here, and just just being trying to be at my best at all time.
Right. Does the coaching thing resonate with you to go a little further than just doing the stuff around track?
I think one day it could. I think I enjoy it, and I enjoy being around people that love lacrosse and being around the game. So I could definitely see myself in a coaching role at some point, whether it's in this league or any other opportunity. I would definitely leave that door open.
Right. Solid goalie coaches are as good as gold in the league, I think.
Yes, they are.
I really want to thank you. I know you got a busy weekend coming up with Georgia coming to town, and getting yourself in a mindset to be the starting goalie. I like that. That's a nice ring. Troy Holowchuk, starting goalie. So I really want to thank you for taking the time and doing the interview with us.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate you having me on.
It's totally our pleasure. I got to tell you, answering questions is probably harder than stopping balls.
It's up there.
Hey,
It's a toss up.
we didn't throw any hard ones at you.
No, you guys are good.
Gary must like you or something. Usually he has some really digging questions. I don't know. He must like you or something. No, I'm just kidding. Gary does what he does, and you do what you do, and I love this game, and I've been doing it for goodness gracious. This show has been going on for around 15 years now. I really appreciate you being here. It's important, Troy, that people get a chance to see people like you, to understand what makes lacrosse go, because you guys stir the drink, the players, the coaches, and every time we meet somebody, the first thing that always pops up in my head is how they started playing and how much they love playing. And there's a passion that lacrosse has that I don't think many other sports have. So thank you for sharing your passion about the game with us.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. I appreciate it.
Okay, for Gary Groob, Troy Holowchuk, don't forget he's starting goal this weekend. He's starting goal this weekend. So throw out an extra cheer. You can say, yeah, we saw him. We know what he looks like without a mask on. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching NLL Lacrosse Talk. We'll hope to see you again next Thursday at 4 o'clock. Until next time.